Morning everyone. My name's Noel and I work as a sound curator and ethnomusicologist at the Hyperactive Museum in Oxford, and also for 15 years been working as a professional DJ. And for the next 20 minutes or so I'm going to try and explain how these things might be related. Today I'd like to share some emerging ethnographic research into oral histories of rhythms, what the practitioners, dancers and producers say they do and might mean, why they survive, persist, function and acquire identities. I draw my background case studies for my own fieldwork and general DJ culture quite broadly, and then I'm going to move towards at the end briefly two musical genres known for their distinctive and contemporary rhythmic complexity and innovation, Shangaan electro, you can see an image there, and Chicago footwork. I'm going to try and bring my background together as an Africanist ethnomusicologist and a sound curator who works with communities. And I've been very inspired in this idea of oral histories and how they work with this work, the beautiful music all around us by Stephen Wade, a folk musician, and John Henry's Days by Colson Whitehead. These are two books that really look at biographies and lineages of songs and how they acquire meaning and the human transactions behind songs and rhythmic structures and things like that. Through the course of my ethnographic fieldwork for ongoing projects in the Eastern Cape of South Africa, the Central African Republic, and in galleries and sound archives, I've developed a method and practice of what I called sound elicitation, which is finding ways to share recorded heritage with local communities, ideally through their own local mechanisms. So here, this is a way of playing recordings back on the street with DJs in a way that they actually use them themselves. In the Eastern Cape of South Africa in 2008, for previous field work, when trying to circulate 1950s archival field recordings amongst contemporary Xhosa communities, this is in Xhosa-speaking region in the Eastern Cape, recordings made by Hugh Tracy in the 1950s and ostensibly for the local musicians. I hope to gauge their local interest to ancestral recordings and to enhance the knowledge of their content and to think about their contemporary relevance as well. And as we found ways to play them amongst people, so DJing on the street and things like that, rather than just in the archive, across a year, what I noticed and collected was very, very vibrant narrative and physical responses to old recordings. People would get up and demonstrate the dance that went with the songs, like Samagwaza. They'd offer lengthy oral histories related to the songs, situating them in myth and contemporary practice as well. Joy, sadness, all sorts of emotions came out through these. And speeches came about the relationship between heritage and contemporary identity and things like that. So a tiny snippet of Samagwaza, recorded by Hugh Tracy in 1950. Stop it there. Initiation song, recorded by Tracy in about 1956, I think, in regions very close to where we are here in the Eastern Cape. And to cut a long story short, every time it was played in a listening session to someone, there was a different response to what it was. Nobody agreed with Tracy's catalogue entry for what the song was and what it meant. People would say, this Samagwaza, you can hear in that recording that it's slow with the drums, but today it is rushing with the youth because the men go to and from the bush while the youths are being circumcised. They're usually much younger, so they sing faster, they drum faster. We don't use this drumming for Samagwaza. This makes me think we got the song from the Mpondos. This is the very same rhythm, the very same song we sing today. It's the Xhosa rhythm. So completely contradictory about where it comes from. And when I looked at all these responses, it was possible to kind of trace biographies of songs and how they changed and affected communities. And over time, the value of collecting these oral histories became immediately apparent as each response from a listening session could be fed into the next session. So, so-and-so said this, do you agree? Do you agree that this is what the song is like, etc., etc.? I want to listen very briefly to a recording of a Boyobi ceremony. This is part of a big collection that I curate at the Pit Rivers Museum. This was recorded in 1992 in the Central African Republic. It should just buffer. going to stop it there. Suffice to say, it's from a very, very long recording. This archive at the Pit Rivers is the world's largest archive of Bayaka music from musicians in and around the rainforest of the Central African Republic. The distinctive voices that you can hear sort of conducting and stopping the rhythm are bobe, spirits operating a call and response with a large group, a choral group in the forest. The singing and drumming in such a ceremony, which can last for days, may be halted almost at will multiple times until the bobe spirits are satisfied that the drumming and singing are powerful enough to make them dance, sing new songs, offer new songs, and ultimately give their blessing to the hunt with symbolic spit, which would later be heard in this recording as a sort of swishing, hissing sound over the top of the drumming. Again, a crucial aspect of rhythmic composition, performance and understanding seem to be how the practitioners, and in this case it includes spirits, verbally conceive of the rhythms which themselves are bound within clear personal and group histories as well. So working as a DJ, a professional DJ for more than 15 years, trained in the skills of beat matching, cutting, all these things, and how you bleed and change rhythms. Through this sort of professional practice, I've observed in these arenas as well the importance of description, colour and metaphor for DJs, producers and dancers or consumers and how they understand rhythm. What practitioners say about rhythms can often reveal insights that models, transcriptions and close listening might even miss. So what do producers and practitioners feel, think and say is happening when they create, compose and perform rhythms? And I've just selected a few quotes from the literature from key sort of electronic innovators. Dub pioneer King Jammy, on the left here, he admitted that a lot of his experiments in the late 60s and early 70s with King Tubby on the right there thrived off mistakes as they worked to fragment instrumentation and take it in and out of the mix. He revealed that with all the bass and drum thing now, that thing just started by accident. A man would sing off key, and when you reach that, you drop everything out and leave the drum, lick in the bass and cause a confusion, and people like it. Jay-Z, in his book Decoded, distinguishes between two kinds of rhythm working together in rap music. The first kind of rhythm is the meter, which he says is mostly invariant. Quote, even if it's a Timbaland production, with all kind of offbeat fills and electronics, a rap song is usually built bar by bar, 4-beat measure by 4-beat measure. The other rhythm is the flow of the rapper jumping on the beat. He explains, quote, sometimes you stay in the pocket of the beat and just let the rhymes land on the square so that the beat and flow become one. But sometimes the flow chops up the beat, breaks the beat into smaller units, forces in multiple syllables and repeated sounds and internal rhymes, or hangs a drunken leg over the last bap and keeps going. The flow isn't time, it's like life. It's like a heartbeat or the way you breathe. It can jump, speed up, slow down, stop, or pound right through like a machine. If the beat is time, flow is what we do with that time. And avant-garde artist and theorist Paul D. Miller, or DJ Spooky, that subliminal kid, he writes a lot about what he thinks when he's creating rhythms and sound. Just to take a quote from him, he explains what he hears is partition subjectivity, crossfade, sonic shockwave sounds of seismic bass disruption, pitch, tempo, the inertial drag of bass detuned, compressed and pitch shift down, drums pitched upwards and downwards, sound as a unified field of spatial representation with its own oral logic. Ego becomes a sonic waveform in the chaotic urban landscape of inner city pressure. These are the things that go through my mind when I make music. I create music that reflects the extreme density of the urban landscape and the way its geometric regularity contours and configures perception. That's from an essay he wrote called Algorithms, Erasure and the Art of Memory. Oral histories of rhythms might help us decide where further analysis should go. In Solid Foundation, an oral history of reggae, David Katz chose the method as the most effective way for Jamaican originators to tell their own stories, noting that, quote, an oral history captures the spontaneous circumstances of much reggae invention and allows the wit and wisdom of its propagators to shine through. Interviews with Derek May, a pioneering Detroit techno artist famed for infusing industrial-like machine rhythms with warm human emotion, reveal the gendered nature of some of his art form. He recalls a party he once played at when he was starting out, and he noticed that when DJing certain tracks with particular snare drum kicks, quote, all the lads, every single one of them came forward, and I noticed the girls got pushed away. I realised if this music went in the wrong direction, it'd be something that only the guys would like. He was then inspired to develop his sound by blending warmer emotions with machine rhythms. It's something he became very famous for. And in groove music, the art and culture of the hip-hop DJ, Mark Katz notes that the narrative mode feels right when discussing hip-hop DJs. It's the stories that DJs tell that truly make sense of their past. Stories are our most powerful conveyors of knowledge. They preserve traditions and they reveal the values of a community. He does, however, warn that storytelling does have its pitfalls, noticing that when different people talk about the same event, divergences can be stark. And so he argues for multiple perspectives, so building up more and more of these histories. Sampling is, Katz reminds us, fundamentally an art of transformation. A sample changes the moment it's relocated. Any sound placed into a new musical context will take on some of the character of its new sonic environment. We're now in an age when sampling is no longer esoteric and shrouded in occlusion, but rather is archived and democratized by a huge online digital presence. So this is drum and bass DJs and practitioners archiving their own dub plates, digitizing them, and then making them available online. As a whole economy has grown up. Some of these go for thousands. Some of the samples that you can buy them as well. And there is preserving images of close-up of the dub plates themselves as well. This is DJ Artists United States of America, United States of Audio. He's compiled tribute mixes to seminal hip-hop albums such as the Beastie Boys' Paul's Boutique and De La Soul's 3 Feet High and Rising. And in this mix, he collages album tracks alongside the original samples, interviews, rarities, and reconstructs some of the rhythmic sections within them, and does it all within a live mix. This is a good live example of the DJ culture that Paul D. Miller sees as, quote, a kind of archival impulse applied to a kind of hunter-gatherer milieu. WhoSampled.com, which I'm sure some of you know, is a famous website tracing where samples, their biographies, where they come from, where they go. It lists as the second most sampled record of all time, Amen Brother. I'm sure lots of you will know this piece. We've got 20 seconds of it, normal speed, fast, slow. Drum bass. That's from, it's 4 bars from the B-side of Colour Him Father by the 1960s funk and soul band The Winstons. Drummer is Gregory Coleman, who's no longer alive. Found its way into Ultimate Breaks and Beats collection, the first one in 1986, which then found its way into many, many hip-hop tunes, and more or less spawned an entire genre in drum and bass when practitioners sped the break up. Why did this break persist and mutate in its identity, as jungle producers created infinite varieties of mini snare rushes and stop-start mini loops using tiny slices of each part of the break to stretch the conclusion of the beat? What was it about this break? London-based session drummer Tom Skinner draws attention to the distinctive, quote, crunched quality to the pitch tone of the snare drum, a function of the way it was originally recorded. He claims that, quote, any junglist will tell you a snare can be as evocative as a smell. Author Michael Schneider has even gone as far as to comparing the waveform of the break to ancient Greek ideal ratios. Now, I'm not going to speak about the science within this, but he's taken it seriously. You can look it up if you're interested in. He thinks there's something deeply human within this, and has written about it. And Berlin-based digital hardcore record label owner Alec Empire claims that there was a period in his label, about mid-1990s, when every record they released had to have the Amen break in it. It was compulsory. He's well known for his anti-neo-Nazi activism, Alec Empire still is, and he explains how he endlessly sliced and spliced the Amen break and, quote, went back to the funk as a protest against what he thought was senseless European rave culture with its square 4-to-the-floor rhythms that sounded dangerously like German marching music. So for him, this break became highly political, and it almost became like the logical conclusion of what you could do with this break. I'm going to play 30 seconds of one of his label mates, Patrick Catani. You'll hear the break, but you'll hear what's happened to it. This is in a tune called Hitler 2000. And I'll take it into about a minute.
Before the movement, people are fascinated. The time is ripe. Adolf Hitler is alive. This album is full of pictures of him. Bobby Vlock and 93 other boys are exact genetic duplicates of him, bred entirely from his cells. Not his son, not even a carbon copy, but another original. He was thrilled by the idea. The right Hitler for the right future. Hitler tailor-made for the 1980s, 90s, 2000.
I'll pause us there, but I'm sure you can recognise the break is in there. It's his Empire and his label mates. They've made it highly political and sort of argued against neo-Nazi activities. Just for the last 5 minutes, I'd like to move towards these case studies that I'm working towards. This is pre-field work, but I'm trying to apply this idea of how you can talk to producers about what they're doing with their rhythms. The first one is Shangaan electro, and the second one being footwork. I'll just have a couple of minutes on each one and round up with a concluding thought. Rhythmic units, it can be seen, might persist for social and political reasons as much as any aesthetic and structural reasons. So I'll introduce these two examples of African and African-American dance forms. Shangaan electro is from the Limpopo province in the northeastern part of South Africa. It's a very contemporary product, but has its roots in traditional Shangaan guitar and drum music. And in the 1960s, guitar was introduced, which became very popular. And then more recently, let's just have a producer called Nozinja, he started messing about quite seriously with these rhythms in Shangaan music.
I think it's a brilliant innovation. It's instrumental, right? Actually provides you that ultra low break.
Just give you a very brief idea in case you haven't heard it, what it sounds like. Okay, there's lots and lots of this online if you're interested in hearing more of this. That's just to give you a flavour. Richard Ntetwa, or Nozinga, he vowed to make Shangaan music internationally known. He was an entrepreneurial businessman and kind of applied these insights to rhythm and what he wanted to do with it. He decided to remove the guitar and bass from traditional Shangaan music and change the song structures and replaced a lot of the guitar and bass with sample marimba playing, but crucially pitched it up from 130 BPM up to about 184, so it got very, very fast. And then he sprayed the rhythms with these kind of helium-like samples that are influenced by rave culture. London's Honest John label has put out a collection of this and a collection of remix with avant-garde producers turning their hand to these rhythms as well. People like Actress, RP Boo, Footwork producers who I'm going to talk about for the last few minutes. At present, very little is written about this genre, but it's got a very large YouTube following and an increasingly international profile. A full rhythmic analysis of the changes Nozinga and others have made to the traditional rhythms in due course will prove fascinating. But when asked what made him push the tempo so fast, Nozinga always claims it's the dancers. And this now means people that are between about 3 and 35. To quote, "We don't have to do what our great-grandfathers did. If you play a song that's too slow, they'll stand and look at you and say, no, it's not danceable. We don't change the vibe. These days, we're fast, man. In the old days, all the women who are dancing, well, they're mothers now. They can't dance like that. These guys, they dance faster. So we thought, let's change it. Let's move faster. I don't want any guitar anymore in my music. I want something like a little bit of Kwaito house, but still maintaining the speed, the drums, the toms, the marimba of Shangaani." To look at his production and his decisions, what he's doing, he always says he looks at the dancers. He watches their legs. He watches footage of previous videos, and that's how he produces and creates new rhythms. And I don't think it's any accident that it's an entrepreneurial, it's a businessman that has made this music internationally known. He's made clear decisions, and he said that he realised that traditional music wasn't being promoted, whereas Kwaito and house was. So all these factors have come into play. They're all generative factors within rhythmic change. I also suspect that fieldwork will reveal a strongly political element because in this promotion of rhythms, because Shangaan people have long been a minority group with a history of displacement within their own country. Final few minutes on the last case study is Chicago footwork. Let's have 30 seconds of a dance battle, so you get a tiny, for those of you that haven't heard it, you get a tiny idea of what it sounds like. It's another competitive dance form. Again, very, very large YouTube presence if you want to hear more of it. The most obvious thing is very, very fast. It's pitched very, very fast. Stylistically, it's related to Chicago house, but producers such as RP Boo, Rashard, DJ Spin, they chose to do very interesting things to this more house-based rhythm. They removed the kick drums from the music, replaced the sound with high density but constantly flickering and shifting bass pressure with intense propulsion rather than cathartic tension and release. Rapid hi-hat rolls switch randomly from regular to double and triplet time, and snare hits no longer drive the tune on the second and fourth, but rather, according to interviewer Charlie Frame, they, quote, prefer to stab and kick the track along like a tin can. Meanwhile, samples are chopped into often unrecognisable snippets, looping, repeating, and overlaying themselves in a myriad of disorientating time signatures. There's quite often three different main ones going on, about 160 BPM, half-time speed, and there's something going on at about 120 as well. As with Shangaan electro, analysis of changes in footwork, rhythmic complexity, and density from its precursors are likely to prove very revealing. Again, I think it's important to collect the oral histories of this rhythmic production to fully understand the programming decisions made. These rhythmic forms are very closely tied to highly competitive dance battles, which were originally held in school gyms, house parties, and skate rinks. That's what you can see. Today, more often than not, at least one dancer will be in the studio while the producer's working, a bit like Nozinga watching the legs of the Shangaan dancers as well. DJ Spin has explained how he customised his record decks to change the plus and minus 8 pitch to plus and minus 25% so as they could get it right up, pitched right up. And another producer, Chrissy Murderbot, explained that most of the records that he's heard, he's only ever heard them at the wrong speed, the records that influenced them, playing them at 45 instead of 33. Like Shangaan electro, very little has been written about the form, but it has got a very large online presence, and I also expect fieldwork to reveal further political elements to the rhythms, because the south side of Chicago, where this comes from, is again a very marginalised and segregated place. So these are two case studies that I'm going to be working into with fieldwork in due course. Just a concluding thought, I've argued for the importance of oral histories of rhythms, and particularly for understanding many of the technical, aesthetic and social forces underpinning decisions made by practitioners. I think it's possible that the kind of tempo moves that have been made in these two genres are going to be as significant as the move from reggae and hip-hop to drum and bass in due course. It's that kind of step up in tempo. And both of these operate as sort of quasi-drum and bass tempos as well, which allows the dancers to explore two different sort of fast and half time speeds as well. I don't want to argue that oral histories explain everything. The original funky drummer, Clyde Stubblefield, when asked about funky drummer, says, I don't care about it. People ask me to play it, I don't know how it goes, not much thought went into it. So it's a mistake to think that talking to the practitioners tells us everything, but I still think it's significant. But solid ethnography from listening to people and their relationships to rhythms is likely to prove fertile for understanding some of the generative impulses. Michael Veal, who's written about Fela and dub music a lot as well, he speculates that the violent spatial manipulations in Jamaican dub music, quote, might also be heard as functioning to liberate the body and mind from the physical rhythms of oppression by providing a convulsive glimpse of abandon. This is in 1970s Jamaica. Talking to Shangaan, electro, footwork, and also Bayaka, Hossa, and other musicians might enable us to test this political speculation in other rhythmic parts of the world. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Noel. I think we